Puma Shen represents the indomitable spirit of the Taiwanese people. There seems to be an assumption about the resilience of the Taiwanese people which does not correspond to the reality. And you can see from Puma that it does not correspond to the reality. A guy under threat is willing to travel, is willing to make his voice heard in defense of the people he represents. That's a wonderful thing, and I think Taiwan should be very proud of him indeed.
I have Luke de Pulford from Interparliamentary Alliance on China here with me in France. Luke, thank you so much for agreeing to take part in that. And you know that you're a star in Taiwan right now. You're an internet celebrity. Everyone is talking about IPAC Summit and about you. You're all over like threads and Facebook, like everywhere. And I see you have Taiwan beer here.
I have indeed got a Taiwanese beer here, and I strongly recommend drinking it.
Really? You like it?
Yeah, I do like it, yeah.
Oh, great. That's very good to hear from a British person. You also guys have very good beer there. Look, what do you think about the outcome of today's meeting and the panel discussion on 2758?
So we had a panel discussion with a number of interesting people on it. Obviously, we had the ambassador, the new ambassador in Brussels, but we also had André Gattelan, who used to be a senator, and Senator Olivier Cadic. Most people don't know that Senator Olivier Cadic, who is a current IPAC co-chair, achieved the most significant law change in favor of Taiwan, really of anybody that I know, across the world. He managed to change the law to require the French government to maintain open maritime traffic through the Taiwan Strait. Extremely significant and a great achievement for him. So it's a privilege to speak alongside them. We were talking about UN General Assembly Resolution 2758. We were talking about some of the problems in getting various countries of the world to push back against Beijing's distortion of that document. And we were talking about how to go beyond that. What's next? How is it that we consolidate our efforts in support of Taiwan? And how is it that we bring about a greater deal of reciprocity towards Taiwan now? These are big questions. It was good to discuss them, and I think there's a lot of work to do, put it that way.
Well, and thank you so much for organizing the whole Brussels summit and for Vice President Xiao to speak in front of the European Parliament for the first time in history. That's terrific. And China followed with very aggressive positions and with very aggressive tweets, like that's what they like to do. But also, if we touch upon the issue of lawfare, recently one of the Taiwanese legislators, there was a warrant issued against him in China. I'm talking about Puma Shen, and he just delivered a speech in Germany in Deutsche Bundestag. What do you think can IPAC do, and what is the IPAC's position on such lawfare efforts and with China attempts to interfere with the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and democratic governance?
I think there are a few things to say. The first is that Puma Shen represents the indomitable spirit of the Taiwanese people. Occasionally when I go around the world and speak to lawmakers, they say things which are, I think, very insulting to the Taiwanese political culture. They say, for example, the Taiwanese will not defend themselves. They're not going to fight. They don't spend enough on defense, things like this. There seems to be an assumption about the resilience of the Taiwanese people which does not correspond to the reality. And you can see from Puma that it does not correspond to the reality. A guy under threat is willing to travel, is willing to make his voice heard in defense of the people he represents. That's a wonderful thing, and I think Taiwan should be very proud of him indeed. When it comes to lawfare, we have experienced this within IPAC for years. We started actually in 2021 a campaign called Do Not Extradite, because many of the people within IPAC, including myself and others, were under risk of going to third countries and potentially having to deal with spurious requests for extradition. And this is an issue that we've had to face, particularly on behalf of dissidents around the world who are really under much more threat than we are. So we've done what we can in order to try to push back on that. Occasionally we've raised cases where it has become really risky. There have been cases of Uyghurs, particularly in Morocco, where there have been requests to extradite them back to China, and we've had to intervene in those cases. We'll continue to do that. When it comes to lawmakers, it's quite interesting because a number of the members of IPAC from big democratic legislatures are sanctioned. Strictly speaking, that should mean that they are vulnerable themselves to extradition to China from third countries. So we've had to try to get assurances from various governments that if there's any attempt like that, if there's any abuse of Interpol red notices, we have to know, and we have to have contacts in those places that are going to respond urgently. But there's a lot more work to be done on it. Interpol, I don't think, is really fit for purpose right now. Very much open to abuse. And a lot needs to be done to tighten up the rules around red notices. But I think more broadly, governments have to be pushed into a position where they accept that politically motivated extraditions will never be possible from China, that there's just a blanket rule against accepting them.
Currently, Interpol's position and their overall policy is not to interfere with political persecution, not support any political persecution. But as you said, the system is abusable. Can you tell a bit more about that?
Well, Beijing has a long history of using what seem like superficial, legitimate criminal complaints in order to pursue political dissidents. They do this all the time, unfortunately. So there's no real protection. If you introduce distance like that and you say, oh, well, we won't allow them to go after people who are politically persecuted, it's not good enough. You actually need to have a blanket rule against extradition to China, full stop. And the reason for that is that it is not a rule of law jurisdiction. You can't extradite people to a place where you can't guarantee that they're going to get a free and fair trial. That's the wrong thing to do. So we've recently had this problem with Hong Kong, where in the United Kingdom, they were considering re-establishing extradition with Hong Kong, which would be a disaster for the over 200,000 Hong Kongers that have recently come to the United Kingdom, many of which are politically hunted by Beijing. So we're doing what we can to prevent all of that. It's a big job, because many governments are in a position where they feel they have to capitulate to Beijing's demands. And it's the kind of thing that Beijing and Hong Kong have raised in discussion with foreign governments. They really don't like the fact these guys can just speak up in foreign countries. They want to silence them. They want to threaten them. They want to coerce them into silence. And we have to make sure that that doesn't happen.
More and more people in Taiwan are talking about IPAC and how your organization is friendly towards Taiwan, is supportive of rules of rule of law, of democracy, of freedom of speech, freedom of election, political process, everything, and the right for Taiwan to defend itself. How can Taiwanese people and people all around the world, how can they support IPAC, and what can they do for IPAC to make your voices heard even louder?
Well, thanks for the question. You probably will have seen that there was a lot of disinformation in Taiwan after the visit of the Vice President to Brussels. There was one thing that came out where they said that we had received apparently 80 billion euros, which is a tremendous sum of money.
I've heard another one that IPAC was established by Taiwanese in Taiwan, and it's a Taiwanese association.
It's all completely ludicrous. There wasn't a single Taiwanese organization financially involved in anything that we organized.
And Taiwan only joined this year.
I know. None of it makes any sense.
Yeah.
However, it's quite funny because the truth is that IPAC's operating budget is extraordinarily small compared to our impact. We still have a staff size that is the same as it was when we had 20 countries in IPAC. We now have 44 legislatures. And really the secret source of IPAC is being able to organize cross-party political activity, to create space for unity beyond party and beyond geography. And we need help to do that. So I would say, kind of amusingly really, we do not have the financial resources that people think that we do. We need to expand our operations to confront what Beijing is doing. It is not a fair fight. They've got more money than us. They have everything at their fingertips in the state apparatus in Beijing in order to make our lives difficult. They are pressuring our members around the world. We are pushing back as hard as we can, but if people want to help us financially in order to expand our operations, we'll be very grateful, and we really do need that.
And the information can be found on IPAC.global.
Absolutely, people can make donations of any size there. Give us the amount of bubble tea, and we'll turn that into meaningful political action.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Lovely to talk to you.
And bubble tea is really great. Thank you.